Hi, this is Norm Lanier, and on the phone with me tonight is celebrity bartender James Wedmore. Hey, James, how's it going tonight?
It's going great, Norm. How are you?
Great. I'm so pumped about this interview. This is going to be a lot of fun. So let's cut to the chase. You know how to get tips that would walk away from most bartenders. I mean, what are the odds of you having a, say, $200 night in tips?
Pretty good chance. I mean, there's a lot of components that have, built up to me consistently guaranteeing that I'm going to do very well every single time I'm behind the bar, every single night. But a $200 tip night is no problem.
And 300 possible?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Not a question.
I mean, so has it always been, have you always been able to do that? I mean, from the very beginning, have you been able to pull in those kind of tips?
From the very beginning. I've been very frustrated since the beginning of my experience in the service industry. I worked my way through high school and college, starting out as a server, and eventually, as soon as I turned 21, went into bartending. And even, serving those few years that I did was, the money, you just kind of eke by with it. You're never happy, and you finish your shift with, like, you're beat, you're tired, you're, covered in sweat and just, like, aching, and you really look down at your money, especially after you're tipping everyone else out, and you're just, like, was just never really happy. So it wasn't until I got into bartending, still wasn't, so I kind of had this illusion, oh, well, now that I'm a bartender, I'm going to be making a lot more money. And that wasn't necessarily the case until I realized I kind of had to make some changes there. But, no, definitely, my first bartending job, I actually worked as a service bartender. For anybody who doesn't know what a service bartender is, it's a great segue to get your foot in the door, of course. But you're working in the kitchen, the back of the house, behind the scenes,
Right.
Making drinks for servers, usually at like a busier or more fine dining upscale restaurant. And your only tips come from the servers.
Okay.
So you get practice at making the drinks, but that's about as bad as it gets, because you're just getting tipped out a few dollars here and there from your 5 or 6 servers on staff that night.
And I bet they can be just about as demanding as customers.
Yeah, they're a little worse because you got to see them every single night.
Yeah.
And then the move to I've done many different bartending jobs, worked at restaurants, nightclubs, you name it, and definitely have seen a huge change from making nothing, and then like one of the things about bartending is that you really do. There is a lot of manual labor. You're really working hard. So when you're not making that money to make it worth it, it's very frustrating. And so I definitely experienced that for some time. But you do it long enough, and you figure out some secrets.
So probably one of the things that I kind of felt like was that probably in the beginning you felt like kind of you were at the mercy of, whether or not you would get tips from customers and stuff. And at some point there was kind of like this mental change that, like, you weren't just a victim, that you were going to be proactive and kind of take control and say, hey, I'm gonna take control of this situation and determine how much I can make.
Absolutely. That's, you hit it right on the head, because here's the thing is, there's a positive and negative about, this positive is what drew me to bartending in the first place and working in the service industry, is that there is definitely some truth here, is that your work ethic and how much you put forth in your job will reflect on your income. So the harder you work, the more you hustle, the better you do, the faster you get those drinks out there, and the more you do to please your customers, you can see a result. You can see a difference, as opposed to some 9-to-5 job or any other, just flat rate based job where no matter how, all you have to do is work hard enough to not get fired, right?
Right.
And you're going to get the same amount of money. So that's what really drew it to me through bartending, serving, the whole service industry environment to me in the first place. But I kind of like lost sight of that, and becoming a bartender, I really had to just stop, change my whole mindset on everything, and realize it really is up to me.
Mm-hmm.
What I do, how I treat my customers, how hard I work, and little tricks, of course, along the way, is going to affect how much money I'm bringing in every single night. And what's great is that money is always cash tips. It's always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of, there's a shift there almost, again, I was kind of thinking that the shift almost went from being just someone there to waiting on people to almost becoming a ringmaster of the entire event.
Yep. I like to say, my biggest thing is that as a bartender, you are kind of like king of the castle. You know, when you're there, you're not just an employee who's been told what to do. You know, you are in control of your bar.
Right.
And in essence, you're in control of how much money you can make. You know, another thing is that, and we're going to get some really cool tips out in a minute, but I know that a lot of bartenders out there don't want to be told by someone else, oh, well, this is how you can make more money. But the thing is that you can always improve. Because I didn't want to hear it, too. There's something about us as bartenders is that we get kind of stubborn in our ways, and we don't want to change or anything. And that's how I was. But if you look at, and you just implement one little trick, one little change, one little technique into your routine, you do everything else the same, you can start to see difference.
Right.
So that's what I started doing. I started researching more and more, a lot on human behavior, why people tip. You know, learned a lot of selling techniques, which I think ultimately that's what you become as a bartender, as a salesman. You know, just saw the increases from there to the point where. Yeah, go ahead.
So did at some point it almost become too that you're actually playing a strategy when you're working customers and what approach that you take and how you deal with them.
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a strategy at play there. You know, it depends on a lot of factors which will switch up what type of tactics you're using, because someone who's working at a really busy nightclub on a Saturday night is going to be doing stuff a little differently than someone who's working at like a chain restaurant at a lunchtime shift. So it's really about
reading the crowd.
Right, but finding what works for you in that environment. You know, doing some stuff like when we talk about some flair and magic and stuff that I do. You know, okaying some of that with your manager, of course, but just being able to adapt that for you in your environment, for your bar.
Right.
So a lot of it overlaps completely because we're all people, and a big thing, and this is always something I always love to share, is you know, if you're a salesman, you should be getting into the shoes of your customer, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to know why people are coming out to a bar, why they're going out at night. And it's because they're looking to be entertained. We're all looking to be entertained. We're all looking for an experience. And they're not paying $6, $7, $15 because you make the best martini in town, or they're looking to save money. No, it's because they're paying for the experience that comes with that. You know, the lasting memory that they could have that night. And as a bartender, as the life of the party, you have the power, you have the ability to make a lasting experience for that person, for that customer. So that's maybe why they'll tip you more.
Well, I mean, the bar really is the center of activity, though, in you know, a lot of, maybe not so much in restaurants, but certainly in the bar scenes and at parties and so forth.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you're the man or woman behind there, you know, you do have power, you have the influence. So if you know what you're doing and you implement just a few tactics, you can see some incredible changes. So, good changes.